Hello and welcome back to another open source workplace video. Today I'm back with Ken van Someren. Ken, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, very good, Steve. Very good. How are you?
Good. Doing very well, thank you. How's everything
Good.
in the UK? Your family keeping safe and well?
Yeah, all good. We're unfortunately the sunshine of the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks is broken, and we've now got a week of rain, which has made lockdown even more distressing and miserable. But no, otherwise fine.
Good, good, good. Glad to hear it. Now, obviously, we're 6, 7 weeks into lockdown, depending on where you are located. Now, looking back, if there was something you wish you knew before you went into lockdown, what would be that one thing you wish you knew?
I guess from a work perspective or a business perspective, running my own small to medium sized company, it would have been brilliant to have foresight to know this was coming, exactly when it was coming, how long it was going to last, because that would certainly help. Would have helped us, and of course many others. Plan, pivot if necessary, and just ready for what's come at us. And inevitably, anyone working in any arena, but particularly related to workplace, things have changed massively. So I guess an element of foresight would have been brilliant. That said, one of the beautiful things about running your own small company is you are agile, and that's part of the fun. Needing to pivot when you need to, reacting when you can. Fortunately, without massive overheads and the massive corporate machine that takes a while to change direction. And so I guess what we've been doing from a business perspective is very much focusing recently on, well, how can we support organizations, in turn support their employees so they can be productive at home. And we spoke about how we can create the right environment and the habits and behaviors to enhance focus and attention in our last video. And then, of course, increasingly, how do we ready for the return to work as well? And I still believe that we have, an incredible opportunity here to really evaluate what work is, how we approach it, and indeed how individuals, and to some extent their employers, look after their well-being. So building this energy, building this resilience that allows them to sustain performance under pressure. And then I think perhaps from a personal perspective, we spoke, I think, in our first video that I spent a lot of time planning and preparing and looking forward to an ultra endurance bike race. I guess this is me being slightly selfish, but from a personal perspective, that bike race, having slogged my guts out, early morning winter rides before work, going out in the wind and the rain, that was due to take place in early June. And then, of course, we've gone through a period of, well, June's probably not going to happen, but when might it happen? And then just a couple of weeks ago, it was pushed until early September. And there's a part of me thinking, oh, can I sustain this effort and this training through to September? And then, of course, as the weeks go on, are borders going to be opening? Are we going to be allowing free travel around countries and between countries by September? So, for someone like myself who loves to have a goal and plan and work towards that goal, it sort of sets you slightly at sea. You're not really quite sure where you are and what you can be doing. And for me, and just as in elite sports, which, as you know, is my background, performance is all about the process. And how do we go on that journey of preparation and best preparing ourselves? And then the result, to some extent, looks after itself. Now, if you don't know when it is that result might come, or when you need to try and deliver that result, that becomes quite difficult to remain motivated. So, I'm doing my best, and I'm sure many, many other people will be able to relate to this, particularly on a professional basis. Well, some of our goals and objectives have changed. So how do we maintain enthusiasm and motivation and drive to be able to do that, and staying fit and healthy, and having good well-being as a part of it? But inevitably, we're going to need to change some of our goal setting, and certainly set ourselves some short-term goals. And I think, what's particularly empowering for people is having that sense of purpose. And I would urge anyone, and certainly the organizations we're working with, it's incredibly important that organizations and their employees retain that real meaningful purpose and ensure they're setting themselves these short-term goals, whether it's on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, a daily basis, just to be able to maintain performance. So yeah, your question, what would I have liked to have known? There's an element from a business perspective when it was coming, so maybe we could plan better. And from a personal perspective, even still, it'd be great to know when this is going to come to an end. And all of the audience here, I'm sure, will be able to relate to that as well.
No, 100%. I totally agree with you. And I love, from the business perspective, right, what you focused on, the ability to pivot and pivot quickly, because I think many organizations are trying to figure that out, or if they haven't already, right? And it's
Yeah.
those who are nimble, agile, and actually do quickly change, maybe not the direction that they were going, but absolutely adapt and adapt quickly. But then touching on the anxiety of not knowing when this outcome is over, or what that the future looks like is a great point too. And sort of setting those short-term goals, I think, can help individuals, can help teams, and can help organizations sort of move towards different things, and creates a little more certainty, at least in the short term, right? And you can adjust as you go.
Absolutely. And I think that uncertainty, that is the challenge, and if we don't know how long the road is or what's around the corner, it becomes incredibly difficult. And I know we've spoken previously about Olympic and Paralympic athletes. For a while there, the International Olympic Committee was saying, no, we're not going to a plan B. Meanwhile, the rest of the world know full well the Olympics are not going to be happening this year. Of course, now what those athletes have is they have a new line in the sand. They have a new date for next year to be able to prepare for. But of course, many businesses and many employees at the moment don't know what these dates are. We don't know when we're going back to the office. We don't know when, travel restrictions are going to lift. We don't know when supply chains are going to come back to full capacity. We don't know when demand for products and services is going to come up again. We don't know when consumer confidence is going to rise. So, that inevitably is that huge level of uncertainty. And again, we've got to be positive, we've got to be agile. But I know we want to dig into this in a future session, looking after individual and organizational health and well-being is an absolute cornerstone to be able to do that. But maybe that's one for another time.
Yeah, no, and we definitely want to come back and have a look at that. But then, whenever we think about that uncertainty and anxiety you talk about, and how long this is going to be, you think about the return to work and all those things you said that we don't know about when all those things are actually going to take place. We don't know who's going back to the office, right? That's a huge uncertainty too. Even though we may have a desire to go back, we don't know when, and we don't know who will actually go back. Now, obviously, we know with the knowledge workers, a big element of that is social cohesion. And as we sort of evaluate social cohesion in a virtual world, or an uncertain world, how do you think through these times, there's ways to maintain that social cohesion? I mean, you take, your sports teams who basically may not be able to connect with each other, or you take the workplaces and the customers that you're trying to support right now. What sort of questions do they have around maintaining, and then how do you guide them at this time?
Well, I think a fundamental question we've got to ask ourselves here is, to what extent is our workforce a team as opposed to a group of people? And, this is the perennial management and leadership and team building question. But, quite frankly, there's a huge amount of effort spent trying to build a team and treat people as though they are a team, when frankly, they possibly are just a group of individuals or a group of clusters. Now, there's two elements to that. Firstly, whether you are genuinely a team or a group of people, that social contact and the personal relationships is incredibly important to what we do. You know, we're social creatures. We need to connect with people. And at the moment, we're relying heavily on video conferencing, which is one step better than telephone calls, but clearly it's not the same as, you know, having that direct contact with other human beings, which as social creatures we do need. But part of the reason why I say I think we've got to be careful and ask ourselves that question is what we see at Boost is there's a massive strain and stress on people at the moment of this always on phenomenon. And because we're not in the office and because we can't see each other, there's a feeling that whether this is with your teammates, your line manager, organizational leaders, you have to be present all the time, which means you are there responding to your instant messaging. You may well spend the day on video conferencing. And what we are seeing for a large part of the workforce, this is incredibly stressful. And when I say stressful, I'm talking stressful, I guess, as a physiologist. You might not sit there thinking, oh my God, this is really hard on the brain and, you know, I'm stressed about this. But it's stressful in that it is a strain upon the body and brain. And therefore it's incredibly tiring. And so if we are trying to juggle relationships and communication, you know, non-stop throughout the day, every working day, along with trying to do our focused work, we are going to burn ourselves out. And what we're doing a lot of work with organizations on is, well, you know, to what extent do we need to be on? And for how much of the day can we do that? Because I can guarantee, and all the evidence from neuroscience tells us this, if you are constantly responding to emails, instant messaging, video conferencing, you cannot focus and you are not going to complete some of those focus tasks that require attention and concentration and problem solving. So we have to get better. And I think fundamentally we have to understand the toll this phenomenon of being always on is taking on people. So I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, no, it is, and I don't know about you. I can certainly say for sure. By the time I get to the end of the week, I feel more exhausted now because I am constantly on to all those things you talked about. Being on video is very different to being on the telephone
Yeah,
because you know we try to multitask and people can say whether we can or we can't, but and when you're on a video,
yeah.
you're basically locked in. So it's a great point, Ken. But
It
like,
is. And sorry, just a final
yeah,
build on
yeah,
that would be, you know, how people feel throughout this is incredibly important. And, you know, people's mood, people's happiness is, you know, is absolutely fundamental to our being, but it's also fundamental to our performance. And if people are becoming unhappy because of the lack of social cohesion, because of this risk of burnout and always on, then performance drops. And to give you a nice analogy from sport is we know, and all the evidence tells us, that happy athletes not only perform better, but they get ill less often and they get less injured. And we also know from some phenomenal organizational research that, you know, happy, positive and optimistic people in work perform better. So optimistic and happy doctors are quicker and more accurate in their diagnoses. Sales forces are more effective in a very measurable way when their mood is positive. So, you know, when I talk happiness, we're not talking a fluffy concept of whether we're smiling or not,
right.
but it's fundamentally how we feel and how that's driving our performance.
Wow, that's brilliant. It's great context and great data points, Ken. Thank you so much. It's
No, pleasure. Pleasure
there's
as
a lot
always.
there. My brain's going, so I can't wait to rewatching it and capture everything you said there once again. But look,
Yeah,
thank you.
but let's in the future session dig into how we can really enhance that well-being and how we can build that
Yeah, yeah,
resilience
yeah.
for now and for that return to work.
Great. Look, thank you. Have a
Brilliant.
great week, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you,
Take care.
Steve. Cheers.
Cheers.